Imagine a city where a red cross painted on your front door is a death sentence, not a metaphor, a literal condemnation. Because in 1665, that cross means plague has entered your household, and the authorities have sealed you inside with your dying family, a padlock on the outside, a watchman posted at the door, and no way out until everyone inside is either recovered or dead. This is London in the summer of 1665. The most powerful city in the English-speaking world, home to nearly 500,000 souls, is about to lose a fifth of its population in 18 months. And the horror isn't just the dying. It's how the living are forced to behave while the dying happens around them. If you were dropped into London in the spring of that year, the first thing you would notice is the smell. Not the plague itself, not yet. Just London. The permanent stench of a city with no sanitation system worthy of the name. Open sewers running through the center of every street. The thick, cloying odor of tallow candles and coal smoke hanging in a permanent haze over the rooftops. The reek of the Fleet Ditch. An open sewer masquerading as a river black with waste and offal from the Smithfield slaughterhouses. Underneath it all, the smell of people. 500,000 of them packed into timber-framed houses along streets so narrow, 2 men can barely pass each other without turning sideways. The city you walk through is medieval in its bones, despite the Restoration-era fashion on display. Charles II has been back on the throne for 5 years, and the wealthy parade through St. James's Park in French silks and elaborate wigs. But step off the main thoroughfares, and you're in a labyrinth of alleyways and courtyards unchanged since the 1400s. The houses lean over the streets, each story jutting further out than the one below, blocking the sky. Families of 6 or 8 crowd into single rooms. Cellars serve as homes for the poorest, where the damp seeps through the earth floor and the rats move freely between the walls. You walk east from Westminster toward the city, and the noise builds with every step. Street sellers hawking oysters at 4 pence a quart. The clang of blacksmiths on Fetter Lane. The shouts of watermen on the Thames competing for passengers at a penny per crossing. London's economy runs on proximity. The bakers on Bread Street, the fishmongers on Fish Street, the poulterers on Poultry. Everyone lives above or behind their shop. A master craftsman, his wife, his children, his apprentices, and often a lodger or two, all sharing rooms above a ground-floor workshop that opens directly onto the street. There is no separation between work and home, no separation between public and private, no separation between the living and the dead. When someone dies, the body stays in the house until the parish can arrange burial, which in summer can take days. The rats are everywhere, and nobody pays them much attention. They are as much a part of London as the pigeons and the stray dogs. They live in the thatch, in the wood piles, in the cellars, under the floorboards. What nobody understands is that the fleas on those rats carry Yersinia pestis, the bacterium that causes bubonic plague. The disease will travel from rat to flea to human, and it will do so with terrifying efficiency because the conditions in London are perfect for it. Dense population, no sanitation, no understanding of contagion, no medicine that works. The first cases appear in the parish of St. Giles in the Fields in the winter of 1664. A few deaths. Nothing unusual for a London parish. The city's bills of mortality, weekly reports that track causes of death across every parish, record the losses without alarm. People die all the time. Smallpox takes dozens every week. Consumption takes more. A few deaths from plague barely register against the background noise of a city where the average life expectancy hovers around 35 years. But by April 1665, the numbers begin to climb. The parish clerks recording the deaths start to notice a pattern. Entire households going silent. The deaths clustering not randomly, but house by house, street by street, spreading outward from St. Giles like ink soaking through cloth. By June, the bills of mortality can no longer hide what is happening. In a single week, over 100 plague deaths are recorded. The wealthy begin to leave. You watch them go if you're poor, which you almost certainly are. The coaches line up on the roads heading north and west, loaded with trunks and servants. The king himself leaves for Salisbury, then Oxford. Parliament is prorogued, the courts close, the Royal College of Physicians publishes advice, and then most of its members promptly flee the city. The Lord Mayor, Sir John Lawrence, stays. He is one of the few in authority who does. He will spend the next year trying to manage a catastrophe with almost no resources. The city's response to the plague is governed by a set of orders issued by the Privy Council. And these orders reveal a society that has no understanding of how disease spreads, but is absolutely willing to use force. If plague is confirmed in a household, the house is shut up. A red cross is painted on the door. The words, "Lord have mercy upon us," are written above it. A watchman is posted, one for the day, one for the night, to ensure nobody enters or leaves. The household is sealed for 40 days. Think about what this means. You are locked inside with your infected family member. The plague kills roughly 60 to 70% of those who contract it. The symptoms begin with a headache and fever, then the buboes appear, swellings the size of eggs in the groin, armpits, or neck, black and agonizing to the touch. Within days, the victim is delirious, vomiting, bleeding internally. The smell of a plague-infected body is something witnesses describe as unlike anything else, a sweetness mixed with rot that penetrates walls. And you're locked in with this. You sleep in the same room. You breathe the same air. You wait. Some people try to escape. There are accounts of families breaking through walls into neighboring houses, climbing from upper windows, bribing the watchman. One woman on Aldersgate Street ties bedsheets together and lowers herself from a third-floor window in the middle of the night. A family on Cripplegate tunnels through their cellar wall into a neighboring shop. The watchmen themselves are sometimes attacked or killed. In several recorded cases, desperate families set fire to their own doors to break free, preferring the streets to the certainty of death inside. But for most, there is no way out. The parish provides a nurse, called a searcher, to examine the bodies and confirm cause of death. These searchers are almost always old women, poorly paid at 4 pence per body, and widely suspected of stealing from the dead. They are also accused of falsifying reports, recording plague deaths as fever or consumption to spare families the shame of the Red Cross. The dead cart comes at night. You hear it before you see it, the bell ringing, the driver calling, "Bring out your dead." Bodies are loaded without ceremony and taken to mass graves. The largest, at Aldgate, will eventually hold over 1,000 corpses layered with quicklime. By August 1665, London is dying at a rate that overwhelms every system. The grave diggers cannot dig fast enough. The parish clerks run out of paper for death certificates. The searchers, the old women tasked with examining corpses, are themselves dying at alarming rates. Entire streets fall silent. In the parish of St. Botolph Aldgate, the sexton reports that the churchyard is so full of bodies that the ground itself is rising, swelling upward like bread dough, and the smell drives people from the church on Sundays. The living begin avoiding the streets entirely. Commerce collapses. A baker on Bread Street nails his shop shut and flees. A tailor on Threadneedle Street is found dead at his workbench, still holding his needle. In the week of September 12th to the 19th, the bills of mortality record 7,165 plague deaths, the worst single week. The true number is certainly higher, because many deaths go unrecorded, particularly among the poor and among those who hide their sick to avoid being shut up. The streets are nearly empty. The shops are closed. Grass grows between the cobblestones on formerly busy thoroughfares. The only consistent traffic is the dead carts. The city tries everything. Bonfires are lit in the streets on the theory that smoke will purify the air. The College of Physicians recommends carrying nosegays of herbs and flowers. Quack doctors sell remedies made from mercury, arsenic, and dried toad. Londoners chew tobacco, believing it wards off infection. The Lord Mayor orders the killing of dogs and cats, believing them carriers. An estimated 40,000 dogs and 200,000 cats are slaughtered. This is catastrophic, because the cats were one of the few natural controls on the rat population. By removing them, the city accelerates the very cycle that is killing it. The plague rages through the autumn, but by November, the death toll begins to drop. The cold weather slows the fleas. The remaining population has been so thoroughly exposed that something resembling herd resistance begins to take hold among survivors. Samuel Pepys, the naval administrator who kept one of the era's most detailed diaries, records the slow return to normalcy with a mix of relief and unease. He notes how quickly people begin to forget, how the coffee houses reopen and the gossip resumes, how, within weeks, the living step over the memory of the dead as easily as they step over the gutters. By February 1666, the king feels safe enough to return to London. The wealthy trickle back. The courts reopen. The bills of mortality show the weekly plague deaths falling into double digits, then single digits. The final accounting is staggering. Between 1665 and 1666, the official bills of mortality record approximately 68,596 plague deaths. Modern historians estimate the true figure is closer to 100,000, roughly 1 in 5 Londoners. Entire parishes are devastated. Stepney loses over 8,000 people. St. Giles Cripplegate loses over 5,000. The poor, who could not flee and could not afford treatment, die at many times the rate of the wealthy. But what follows is almost stranger than the plague itself. In September 1666, barely a year after the worst of the dying, a fire breaks out in a bakery on Pudding Lane. The Great Fire of London burns for 4 days, destroying 13,200 houses, 87 churches, and most of the medieval city within the old Roman walls. The fire is a catastrophe, but it is also inadvertently a cleansing. The timber-framed houses where the rats nested, the narrow streets where the sewage pooled, the cramped tenements where families died in sealed rooms, all of it burns. When London rebuilds, it rebuilds in stone and brick. The streets are wider. The buildings have regulations. Christopher Wren designs 51 new churches and a new St. Paul's Cathedral. The city that rises from the ashes is fundamentally different from the one the plague consumed. The plague of 1665 was not the last outbreak, but it was the last great one. England never again experiences plague on that scale. The reasons are debated. The fire's destruction of rat habitats, gradual improvements in sanitation, changes in the rat population itself, quarantine measures that slowly became more effective. But perhaps the most enduring legacy is what the plague revealed about power and abandonment. The wealthy fled. The authorities sealed the poor inside their homes to die. The institutions that were supposed to protect people, the church, the crown, the physicians, all either left or proved useless. The people who stayed, the Lord Mayor, the parish clerks recording the dead, the nurses searching the bodies, the drivers of the dead carts, they are the ones who held London together through its darkest year. You walk through London in the spring of 1666 before the fire, and the city looks almost normal. The shops have reopened, the streets are filling again, but every third house is empty. Every churchyard is swollen with fresh earth. The survivors carry it in their faces, a particular look that witnesses describe as a kind of stunned endurance. They do not talk about it much. There is no language for what they have been through, no framework for processing mass death on this scale. They simply go back to work, reopen their stalls, sweep their steps, and try to forget the sound of the dead cart bell in the night. That is the story of 1665. Not a story of medicine or heroism, but of a city that was abandoned by its leaders, failed by its science, and survived anyway through the stubborn endurance of ordinary people who had no choice but to keep living. Subscribe to the channel to see more documentaries about how the stories of ordinary people shaped history. Let me know in the comments what aspect of plague-era London disturbs you the most. London endured, it burned, it rebuilt, and it never forgot what happened when the crosses appeared on the doors.